I made this entire track without picking up a guitar. Okay, so I made that whole thing using Stroma Heavy Gauge sample pack. Let me walk you through every sample I used and exactly how I made this. So Stroma has two packs, feedback and heavy gauge. Feedback's a lot of cool guitar noises and some layers that you can add in to just make your song come to life. What I mainly use for this song though is heavy gauge. So Matt and I sat down and we made a list of all the parts that we thought people would use in a song. And we recorded all of it in every note and in multiple tempos so that you can just drag and drop it right into your song. So when you open the pack, you'll see we have one-shots and loops. One-shots is a bunch of utility tools like ghost notes and detuning and pick slides and bends and just a bunch of extra layers and things where you can really bring the guitar playing to life. The loop section is where the real magic happens. This is all the guitar parts that we could think of that you would need done in every note, every chord, and in multiple tempos so that you could warp them to fit any production. And you'll see as we go how easily they warp to a different tempo outside of what we provided so you can confidently use them in any track. Let's go ahead and jump into the first sample I used and I'll show you exactly how I made it. This is kind of the main layer and this is what it sounds like soloed. So for this, I actually used single notes, basics. This is just kind of all the essentials of what you might use in a song. And so I used the basic eighth notes at 140 BPM. And so all we're gonna do is just drag our chords into the session and you'll see how quickly it comes together. We're gonna grab a low A, next an F, E, then we're gonna grab C low and B low. And as you can see, as I was dragging them in, Ableton went ahead and just warped it to the right tempo. Every DAW has its own setup for that, but they all work and they all work great with these samples. Here's what that sounds like. Cool. And then in context. Nice. All right, so next I've got the same part, but just DI'd for the intro. So here's how I made that. It's the same thing as this, but rather than using the amp, I just go to the DI folder. And once again, you can see it's just getting us right onto the tempo, so we don't even have to think about that. C and B. Here's what that sounds like just on its own. Cool. Then I'll just add my amp here, which for this, I wanted it to be really dramatic. So I actually did UA Lion, no cab. So it's super distorted, sounds kind of crazy. And then in context, I just filtered that in to make a little intro. We've also, during that intro, got this little feedback. This is one of the many that we have in our feedback pack. So the next layer I have is this lead part. So there's actually a few different ways you can make this. You could use our single note plucks, but to keep it more human and alive, I think I'm actually going to stay in the same folder here, and I'm just going to build it out of these loops. That's an A and an E, kind of going back and forth on the first bar. And any of these will work anywhere. Like I could just do it like that, but to keep it as human as possible, I'm going to do every other one and match the feel. So I just grab where I want the A, copy it over, and as you can see, play that soloed. There it is. Okay, and then so for the next bar, we went up to a B. So I'll pull that over here. And same deal, I'm just gonna grab every other one, replace my A's with this B instead. And here's what that sounds like. So I'm gonna pitch it up 2 octaves. And then once you put that through an amp and some delay and reverb, that easy. Just made a lead part so quickly. All I did up here was just continue to change the chords through, but I'll show you what that sounds like in context. Cool. Okay, so the last layer that I have on the song are these bends that create some tension and dissonance and just kind of sends it over the top at the end. All right, so to make this one, we're gonna leave the basics folder. We're gonna go into single note patterns. And let me just show you what this folder is about really quick. This is a lot more of just kind of a couple creative riffs and parts you can use. So for example, here is, this one's called New Metal Jump. Here's what that sounds like. Cool. Then we got Weeboo Doo Doo. Here's some Weeboo Doo Doos. Cool. For this one in particular, I used half-step bend picking. And that sounds like this. So I just used the DI because I wanted a different amp on this one. As you can see, it already warped it for us, so we're in the right tempo. And then I pitched it up 2 octaves, which is a lot, but it takes it really well once you put it through an amp. So here's what that sounds like. So I didn't want this one to sound quite as much like natural guitar playing. I wanted it to be kind of this weird texture layer. So I put it on beats, which is just a weird way of warping something like this. And this is what that sounds like. So that's just how you can kind of use these to get a little more creative and do something different rather than just always having it sound like a normal guitar. Throw that through our amp and some effects and you get this. Cool. So then in context, nice. So that's how I used Heavy Gauge to make this track. I personally have been using it a ton because I can't play guitar really. I can get a great sounding guitar in a couple minutes. I can just drag these in. They sound good. They fit into my productions seamlessly, and it's just been a game changer for me. I'm putting guitar on way more songs because of it. So I feel confident that you guys will love it and you'll be able to use it in the same way.